All right. Well, so welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. The new faces are great to see. As you guys know, probably, because most of you are fairly experienced, is service is kind of the backbone of the SCA. And the Seneschal's office is one of the offices we need filled in order to have a group function. I'm going to share with you real quick a presentation. Please feel free to stop me at any point. And sorry, I didn't mute my phone. And ask any questions. There's some really important parts to this. Oh, they say you have disabled screen sharing.
So I just reactivated it. So try it again.
Okay, thanks. Let's see. There's a number of really important pieces to this that I honestly wish some of our actual Seneschal or the Seneschal officers had come. We'll probably be reviewing that when they join us. They'll probably join us in the second hour if you guys choose to go beyond the first hour. So I think I might get this video ready. Please let me know when you can see it.
It's up.
Awesome. So we have this class today is Seneschal 101. And the reason why I have a slideshow, I usually like to just discuss and talk and have some pretty pictures. But I did a slideshow today because there are some real important words. And for me, I'm a visual learner. So if I see it written, I learn it better. And so it's for those of you who may be visual versus auditory learners. First is the definition of a Seneschal. The Seneschal is the designated officer acting on behalf of the corporation, which is SCA Inc., and its interests and policies in a local level or in the regions, and the local officers acting on behalf of the local and regional interests of the kingdoms and corporations. Now, I know that's a mouthful, so kind of what does that mean? So the Seneschal's job is, the Seneschal is the facilitator of policy and procedure from local to corporate. So basically, the Seneschal is the interpreter of the law, and we help develop law and policy, and we arbitrate law and policy within the group. We also have the responsibility and authority in legal matters. So Seneschals are the folks who sign contracts with vendors for events or for sites and whatnot. They make sure that the SCA governing documents are followed, and they are members of the financial committee. Now, if you have any questions about any of that at this point, please raise your hands or feel free to ask. All right, then moving on. Now this is the key to this presentation. Seneschals help with are the arbitrator of the law. And so there's a precedence to law. We have all kinds of handbooks, which are listed here, and policies and laws that we need to use to interpret, to determine what is legal. And those of higher authority are first. So mundane law is the most important thing. It trumps all SCA laws, all SCA policies. If something goes against mundane law, that's wrong, and we need to follow mundane law. So the next is the SCA bylaws. And then the next, which would be kind of like, and then corporate policy, followed by, and corporate policy is, you know, I don't know if any of you folks have seen the BOD tends to publish policy documents, such as the COVID policy, various policies. And then you have corpora, followed by governing documents, and then the interpretation of corpora by the Society Seneschal. And that is all generally published. Then you have the corporate officer policy, which is the society seneschal policy, followed by kingdom financial policy, and then kingdom law, decisions of the crown, kingdom officer policy, and kingdom officer handbook. So any of the policies published by the SCA should be followed as if by law. However, some are more important to follow than others. And that may have been a little too much for folks. But if you have questions, please, again, raise your hand. So since this is very complex, there's a whole bunch of laws and policies and handbooks to follow. The Seneschal has various tools to use to do that. We have the SCA library, we have the Outlands library. Those are all, on the SCA website and the Outlands website. We also have Seneschal monthly meetings. Right as of now, they are on the fourth Monday of the month, and we have discussions, and anybody can bring any questions. And it really seems to help to meet regularly because more heads are better than one. Additionally, we have teams, and I'm going to try to share our Teams site with you folks so you can see where we have kind of pulled all our documents so we can use them and we can discuss them. And let me see if I can share again. Do we have any questions so far while I'm pulling up Teams? Okay. It's a quiet group this morning. Is everybody still a little sleepy?
Just listening, huh?
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I don't know, can you all see this, or is this too small for you folks to see?
So, you should be able to make it a little bit bigger, Christine, if you click on the...
Can I?
Oh, now you're on the Teams page.
Yeah, I'm on the Teams page. Hey. Sorry. New puppy, he's a nut.
Yeah, it's a little hard to read, especially if they're on a small screen at all.
I don't know how to zoom in here. Let me see if I can figure out how to zoom in.
If you click back into the document, there's probably something under view that will make it bigger.
No,
it's not a document, it's actually the team site.
Yeah.
No, go into the Seneschal checklist again.
Oh, I was going to show them that next. I was going to show them all the things we have on the site.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry. So in Teams, we have the ability to share files. So here we have, we can post questions to each other. We can, oh, I can't work Teams with this. How do I move this? Oh, there we go. We can share files on this file section, which is where the Seneschal checklist is, which is a handy document that Melodia, thank you, Melodia, has updated. We have a wiki where you can look up where the governing documents are, the financial documents, and the Seneschal handbook. And the good news here is that way we can try to keep things as up to date as possible. We've got last year's StatusCon videos if you guys are interested. We've got waivers and warrants. Now, to get on this Teams, you have to, we generally prefer you to be a Seneschal or a deputy, and we would like you need to let us know and we can get you on it. So that you do have to sign up for this site. But the file I really wanted to show folks is the Seneschal's checklist. And I'm hoping I can zoom in at this point because it is very tiny. Here we go. There we go. All right, can folks see that? Is that too small for them to be able to see? All right. So here's the Seneschal's checklist. So when stepping up into office, there's a number of things folks need to do. They need to get with the Kingdom Seneschal to make sure they have the information for their warrant. You need to sign up for the Seneschal mailing list because we have a mailing list. That's where we try to put all our announcements. So hopefully everybody gets it. We ask that you request to be put on the Teams group because this is where we're keeping all our information and where we go to ask each other questions. We also want you to get the files, if you can, from your former Seneschal of your group and set up your Seneschal email. Monthly, on the 10th of the month, your report is due and you can file it online. And to do so, you can click this link, or it's also on the Kingdom website under Seneschal. You also need to compile your local officers' reports, and it's a good idea to keep a monthly spreadsheet to keep track of who's reporting and who's not, because if folks are not reporting, that can be an issue that you need to deal with. Additionally, you need to review the warrants and memberships of your officers. Everybody who is an officer in the SCA needs to be warranted, and they need to have a current membership. And it's handy if you keep track of it, because frequently your local officers may or may not know that they're supposed to. And if somebody's warrant suddenly lapse and something happens, we could be in trouble. Monthly, you also need to be review and sign the bank account statements, which your exchequer should provide. And monthly, we have our online meeting on the 4th Monday of the month. Quarterly, the exchequer should report. It's due 30 days at the end of the quarter, where you need to check make sure the accounts make sense, review the accounts, review their report, and sign by the 15th of the month after that. And again, just so you know that if the Seneschal or the exchequer or really any officer misses their 2 reports in a row, that is grounds for removal. You could be removed from office because we need those reports to make sure we are meeting all our legal requirements. Yearly, we ask that you put together what we call a doomsday report, which is really an end of the year summary report, how your year went. You can do either a compilation of each month's report, or you can do a summary, a quick summary, and any questions that you really need answered or anything that you need help with, you can ask that with that report. The financial doomsday is done by the exchequer, and it needs to be checked and signed by the Seneschal. So it needs to be sent to Kingdom by January 30th. And signed by February 15th, because that Kingdom exchequer will review it as well, make sure the books are straight. So other things that need to happen if you're a Seneschal, we have waivers. Every practice or event creates waivers that people sign when they check in at gate. Those waivers are due to the Kingdom waiver deputy within 10 days of receipt. Additionally, at this time, we're asking folks to send in their COVID checks as well with those waivers. And these can be sent electronically. They can just be scanned, or you can take a picture of them and PDF it and send it to the Kingdom exchequer, or she can take it as well, or I mean, Kingdom calendar deputy, or she can take it and
waiver deputy.
Yes, the waiver deputy. Or she has a tendency, she can take it, if you send it by snail mail, she can scan it as well, but I would recommend you make copies in case it gets lost in the mail. NMR, which is done by the exchequer, which is non-member, It's the extra fee that folks that are non-members pay when they come to an event. Is due within 10 business days within the close of the event. Additionally, financial reviews or formal review of our finances, our books, needs to be done every 2 years or when the financial officer changes. Recently, we have gained the privilege of using electronic payments. And this particular thing was kind of what had held up the Outlands, was that we were having trouble making sure that we got our books reviewed on time. So that's an important thing, or we could lose our ability to take electronic payments.
So Christine, there's one question on the chat about the documents and stuff.
Sure.
I'm just saying, basically people that use Macs, the Macs don't like Teams very well. And so if they're using Macs and they don't have a PC, they have a hard time getting into Teams and can't get to a lot of these documents and stuff. And so they're wondering how they get access then.
That's true. Those documents are also, well, not this checklist. This checklist, you can email myself or Melody and we can send it to you. But the other, if you're referring to the governing documents of the SCA, which is the other stuff, that is all available on the Kingdom website and the Society website. It's just a lot harder to find because it's in multiple places, in two places.
And if I remember correctly, all the Stags Con videos that we have from last year are posted on the Kingdom's YouTube page, correct?
Yeah, Kingdom YouTube, that's correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So the other thing I'm trying to get folks to work on is that we have a records retention policy of 7 years. Frequently, Seneschals will carry around tubs and tubs and tubs of papers, and that doesn't necessarily need to happen. The records need to be kept for 7 years, but not for 20 or 30 or however many years you have existed as a group. And another thing on this checklist is our dates to remember. We have our spring crown. It used to be in April, or no, is it now in April? Yeah, now it's in April in the South, and July or the spring coronation. No, this is the old stuff. Sorry.
No, it's not. It is not. Well, that is the new one.
Or is that winter coronation that's in July? Oh, sorry, I get my fall and spring mixed up because they're not really fall and spring. They're kind of summer and winter to me, in my mind. Okay, so spring coronation is July, although they said not during Penzic or Battlemore because they want to have heirs at Battlemore. The fall crown is in October, but not Columbus Day because they do not want to clash with Great Western War. Fall coronation is January on Martin Luther King Jr. weekend. That gives us a little extra time for travel when weather is bad in the South. Right now, Kingdom ANS competition it does have a place in Kingdom Law. They're currently changing the dates for that because with COVID, all the dates got mixed up. And Kingdom ANS Collegium, which they're also changing. However, Battlemore is been moved back to the 4th of July weekend, unless they absolutely cannot find a site, and then it will return, I believe, to Labor Day, but we're preferring 4th of July weekend. So some documents to be familiar with, and these have changed quite a lot over COVID. A lot of people took the opportunity during COVID to update everything, which is great. It just means a lot of reading for some of us. So SCA, you need to really be familiar with, as a local Seneschal, SCA Corpora, Outlands Kingdom Law, Outlands Kingdom Administrative Policy, and a Kingdom Financial Policy. And the Society Seneschal's Handbook is really a help. They just recently redid it, and I am finding it has some much, much better interpretations as far as the bullying policy. It really talks about investigations in depth. So it can be a much more helpful document than it had been in the past. Okay, so I'm gonna go look at the chat and see what I'm missing. Did I miss any questions?
No, I think it's just been us sharing information about
Okay,
some
great.
of the stuff that we're like with the link to the videos from last year.
Hold on, I'm hearing scary noises from the puppy. I'll be back.
Right.
So were there any other questions or?
Sorry, the fuzzy terrorist was trying to eat buttons off my couch. All right. Well, unless we have questions, I suppose we can, I've got a couple more slides and then we can start some discussion. Hopefully folks will have things to discuss at that point. There we go. All right, so, wait, was this the wrong one?
Yeah, you're sharing your Teams page again.
Stop share. We're trying to get this. We're starting to get better at this, I think. All right. I tried to create a hyperlink, but unfortunately the hyperlink didn't work this morning. And hey, Lavi, right?
Yes, you're on the PowerPoint again.
All right. So we have Teams. Our Teams is an important tool, and we've been using that quite a lot. And I'm sorry for those folks with math books. It's honestly my fault. I did not know when I set that up that we had a Kingdom Google Drive. Once I got that set up, somebody or the Kingdom Web Minister let me know we had a Kingdom Google Drive, and things got, and we're gonna probably try to transfer over to Google eventually when we get time. So next is the Seneschal discussion, and I'm gonna copy and paste this bulleted list and put it in the chat. Ooh, now I can't because my puppy. Because these are some topics I came up with that might be interesting to talk about for the group, but it's up to you. Let me know what you think. What to do in emergency is one, the bullying policy, mediation process, investigations and sanctions, the COVID-19 policy or records retention. Or any other thing that you guys would like to discuss. If not, then we're done 30 minutes early. I'm sorry, I didn't time my presentation very well. I take it back, it's 20 minutes. I have 10 minutes for switching rooms.
So what is the process for an emergency that happens in an event? Thank
you, Melodia. So in an emergency, we need to first, if it's a medical emergency, do not pass go, call the mundane authorities. Then if it's not as urgent as a medical emergency, you want to contact the watch or your autocrat. Then they will either contact mundane authorities in the case of a theft or something else, and then followed by contacting your Seneschal, because your Seneschal kind of needs to know so that it can make sure we're okay with corporate.
And then file a report.
And then the Seneschal, right, we'll file a report, and the Seneschal, please, local Seneschals will please, file that to your kingdom officer, and we will move that up the chain to corporate as is needed, depending on the severity or of the emergency. But in the past, and this is something I think everybody needs to know. In the past, we've had real trouble with folks not necessarily contacting the medical mundane authority right away. And nothing is too bad has happened yet, but I would hate for it to happen. Okay. Do we have any other questions?
So in an event that you do need to contact the local authorities, who makes the call? What's the chain of command? And how does that affect a Seneschal at, say, a local event or a bigger event?
Well, at a local event, if it's a medical emergency, please do call. I mean, really. Are you trying to talk, Violet?
I just said, yeah, it's that whoever's right there and has a phone on them, it's just pick up and dial 911. We unfortunately had to do that at Battlemore a few years ago.
Yeah, and at one Battlemore, when I was running security, folks just kept calling me on the radio, and it was actually a real medical emergency. And luckily, my deputy was an EMT, and she went running over there with her jump kit and everything else and had me call 911. But really, in a real medical emergency, please call 911. Make that call, do it. If it's not a medical emergency, you can generally contact the watch or the autocrat, and they will contact whatever modern mundane authority is necessary. Hopefully.
I thought the Seneschal was the one that needed to contact.
Right, the autocrat is a deputy of the Seneschal, and if the Seneschal isn't there, say, because that does happen at a lot of little local events, the Seneschal might not be there. The autocrat can call the mundane authority. But if the Seneschal's there, yes,
they should be doing it. Yeah. Well, and I know the time that we were at, so Fontaine had a member while we were at Estrella, had to call 911, and so we called 911 and then sent people immediately to try and find security, because we knew that the ambulance was going to need help getting into the site to find us.
And that is the correct way to do it. You call 911 and please let folks know, hey, we need help. We need to get EMS here, And at larger events like Estrella and Battlemore, we have plans for this is the routes that we're going to bring in an ambulance. This is how we're going to flag them down so that they can get there as quickly as possible.
Yep.
And that's why it's best to grab the watch or the nearest person that's organizing things so that they can get that process started to get the EMS in as quickly as possible.
And maybe this is something we need to think about as we're doing events, that as at the beginning of events and during, like, every time the event steward gets called in to do announcements, is to add that to our spiel of, please, if there's a medical emergency, this is what you do. Or if there's other types of emergencies, is that we need to try and announce that, because again, it would be the point to do it. And some people know it and some people don't. And most of the, especially large events, usually have a pretty good address thing or an emergency procedure. I know the big events usually do in their booklets is just remind people that that's there. And it's like, if you have a medical emergency, grab your event booklet, call 911, as you're calling 911, give them this address and then send somebody to find the watch, kind of thing, is just reminding people of that procedures. And, they're going to get sick of hearing it, but eventually it sinks in. Of the, I need to do this, and then I need to do this, and it just needs to be.
And because folks, there's a lot of folks that don't go to court. There's
right.
Go to court because I think really at gate, and I know there's usually a lot going on, and all you want to do is get your stuff set up, so get out of my way. But maybe at gate.
Right, is that we add it to the, or have a poster up and it's like, please remind yourself what to do if, kind of thing.
Yeah, we had an emergency at Outlandish a few years ago where we had to have an ambulance in, and because of the way that site is, we had people lining we sent everybody back to their camps and said, stay off the road.
Right.
That was the first thing. And then the watch was like stationed along the thing to point them in the right direction. because
Right.
of course the place they needed to go was the last camp.
All the way in the back, right?
All the way in the back.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and it worked great. And we had someone meet them up at the gate and bring them in, and kind of ran alongside them actually.
Yeah, you don't drive quickly on that road.
No.
But
yeah, when I've had medical emergencies at Estrella where I was working the watch, and we had watch golf carts stationed at every turn, and we'd be flagging them down and have them go this way.
Yep.
Yeah. So
So
it's important. Oh, go ahead.
the main reason I thought to ask is because there's a difference between medical emergency, and then most people think if there's a theft, that there's an altercation, and they think of that as also an emergency. But it was very clear at most of the events, hey, the autocrat or the seneschal will be the one to contact the authorities in case of criminal matters. But it's making sure people will remember the difference between the two, because if they think, okay, it's best to have one point of contact who's dealing with the authorities, so there's not multiple calls, there's not confusion, there's not conflicting information. But if it's a medical emergency, then thinking about it now, it makes common sense. Yeah, call 911 if you see this happen. But most of the time it's like, okay, let the proper person contact, for lack of a better term, the outside world, so that there's not miscommunication.
yeah.
Right.
So I guess it's making sure it's clear. Medical, like you said, don't pass go, call, get them involved.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The other thing is that just knowing how on the dispatch side of a medical emergency happens, if they get multiple calls, they're usually pretty good about sorting through that pretty quickly, because that's part of what they're trained to do. If they already have somebody on the phone, they usually will say, yep, we're aware, we've got somebody on the phone, thank you so much, and they'll terminate the call. So like I said, and yeah. So I think sometimes it's better to have 2 or 3 calls than none.
Yeah. Another thing is if the cops show up at the site and you haven't called them.
Yes.
If they show up for whatever reason, we have had that happen also. If the Seneschal's on site, they're your first person, go get them.
Yes.
If they're not, then the autocrat would be the next.
Yep.
There should always be someone deputized by the Seneschal to be in charge of that kind of thing. So don't just go, oh, hi, yeah, come on in. Make sure that you tell.
Yeah, you funnel them to the appropriate people.
Yes. When was Seneschal, he had a couple of times when we would get the 4 a.m. Are you in there?
Really?
Yes. And it was the cops coming on site.
Huh.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it happens. So just know that that needs to also go to the authorities so that they know what's going on, because they are, the Seneschal or their deputy is the legal representative for the SCA. So
now, that being said, if somebody is beating the tar out of somebody else, or and it would get that crazy. I've never seen anything like that where somebody was at risk of fatal injury, say. I think you might be justified at that point calling the cops and getting the Seneschal right away.
Yep.
But if we were in an area close enough to even, get the cops out there.
Right. Often we're in rural enough areas that's yeah, that takes them a while to get there.
Luckily, a number of our members, are trained in that stuff. They're, mundanely police or prison people, and they will help out generally at that point.
knowing the people who have medical training, have police training, have things like that is a good idea for a Seneschal also.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I mentioned, having an EMT as your deputy watch is like freaking the best thing ever, because that gets it. Because some medical emergencies, some of us, I certainly, they can be confusing. They can be hard. It's hard to tell if it's really a medical emergency, time to get the ambulance out there or not. So it is, but I would err on the side of caution because I have seen way too many people in the last 2 or 3 years, I just have a little heartburn, or I just have a stomach ache. That's normal. And they're having a heart attack. So err on the side of caution in the case of the medical situation.
Yeah, because just because you call an ambulance doesn't mean that the person necessarily has to go with them. Sometimes getting that medical personnel on site with a little more equipment gives them a little bit better of an idea. And then at that point, it's a decision by the person that's not feeling well and the medical crew with their liability to deal with it. So.
Because it would be really, really sad for somebody not to get the medical attention that they needed.
Yep.
All right. Do we have any other questions?
Say 5 more minutes. What other burning questions do people have, right?
Sure. Very quiet today.
I know I should still be asleep. So.
Oh, I know. But I do appreciate y'all getting up at what I would consider very early to join us for a meeting on Zoom. Do we have anything else for the greater good?
Yeah. Shall I go ahead and stop recording and we can just finish out the last few minutes? All right, so I'm going to do that.